tight ends. You brought in the other coach Coop to do that. So does that free you up? Like during spring ball, you can kind of bounce around to different positions?
Yeah, no, having Coach Bassett, the other Coach Coop, it's been really nice. Just the time management piece, that's been good. Get to float around, be with some of the other position groups. And he's just a really good football coach and a good guy. So we really appreciate having him here.
How does Alonzo change? Does it change anything you guys do want to do offensively? How does he fit into what you guys want to do offensively?
No, I mean, we recruited him for a reason. He fits a certain blend of what we're trying to do, and then he brings his own wealth of knowledge. He's played a lot of football, and yeah, it's been really nice having him here too. Just a veteran guy and someone that's won at a high level. But no, he fits what we're looking to accomplish on offense.
Do you change anything for some of his skill set?
Yeah, but that's pretty much every quarterback, even last season or any other place I've been. Whatever a guy's good at is what you want to run. So a lot of the things that we are trying to do, or what we tried to do last year on offense, Alonzo does that well, and there's things that maybe we didn't have last season, he does well. So yeah, it's a blend of both.
Coach,
what has he been able to do so far this spring camp? What can you do with him so far?
Well, I'll say this about AB, man. It's been just really nice having him around the program since we started the winter OTAs. Just a very knowledgeable guy. He's able to do enough stuff that we really get a chance to see and work and develop him and work with him. But out of abundance of caution, he's not obviously taking a bunch of reps right now in anything. But yeah, it's been awesome having him around, and he's still developing too and learning the system right now.
What is it about his skill set that really jumped off the page when you recruited him out of the portal?
Winning, that's a big one. His accuracy on deep balls, his athleticism, his intelligence. Obviously, you can see that on film, and then when you get to know him, you really find out, okay, this guy's for real in relationship to how he handles his business. I think the best way to explain who he is he's a pro. And listen, he's still learning our system. He hasn't been here that long, so he's taking the install in just like all the other guys every single day. So yeah, but I think those are the main things that pop, the obvious.
Coach Frost just said he's taking mental reps. So how do you define mental reps?
Well, he's not taking like team reps right now at the start of spring. Really just out of abundance of caution, coming off some of the wear and tear of playing a lot of football. So we're trying to be smart with him. And with spring practice, in 2026 college football in general, you're going to bring some veteran guys in that might not necessarily need the same development that a freshman would need. So obviously you got to look at, college football is a lot different in that way. So just out of abundance of caution, we're going to make sure that we're getting our horses to the show, And there's multiple other guys that are going to be limited and maybe not take as many reps as they had to last spring. And that's the blessing of being in year two. With the bulk of, the production coming back on offense, it's a breath of fresh air not having to start with football 101. We're graduating to 202 and hopefully 303 by the end of spring practice.
Coach, you mentioned breath of fresh air. Also asked Coach Frost this. What's the feeling now that you know who your starting quarterback is going into the season? You know AB is the guy. You're able to build the team around him and the cadence of this play style.
Yeah, I think what you just said there hits it. When you have less ambiguity and it's not like this all-out competition, then you can really kind of filter into what people's roles are. And the really nice thing right now is we do have some new guys in the quarterback room, and everyone's getting the chance to get reps that aren't necessarily pegged to be the starter. So that's providing some depth for us as we move into fall camp and then the season.
Coach, now that
Coach,
now that you don't have to hone in specifically on the tight ends, what does spring practice now look like for you? How does your spring practice this time different than last time?
Well, I think the big one is I can spend more time with other position groups, and it's pretty fun too when you can go over and work with the offensive line for a drill and hear some of Coach AJ's coaching points and Coach Bassett's coaching points. And that's all practice, and that's not just the team periods where my position group that I was coaching was with those guys. So you get more of a 100-mile view, and then also that, practice is one thing. I think the real advantage is the time management piece, because it takes a lot to get position meetings ready to go and then still coordinating and getting scripts and stuff like that organized. So we have more detail in the drills and what we're trying to get out of the drills. So that's really been the biggest thing.
Cooper Bassett played the position, and but in his coaching lineage has also been on the offensive line. So how does that maybe help in terms of improving the run blocking for you?
Yeah, bingo right there. That was intentional. We brought someone in with a strong run game background, but also has experience with what we're trying to do in the pass game as well. So we're bringing in another really good football coach that's not just going to help the tight ends. He's helping the entire staff special teams obviously, and other position groups.
When the season ended last year, what were you, when you take a look at what happened, offensively for you guys last year? What did you take away from it, and where do you feel like you needed to really get the biggest improvement?
So like just the overview, the self-scout of our offense for the entire year.
Yeah, and then going into this year.
Yeah, assignments. Assignments. There was too many mental mistakes. It took too much effort to get things off the ground in practice, and so when you don't have firm feet on game day, then you're not going to see the production that you want. So as we enter spring practice and having all this time during the winter to meet, although it's not real football, we're not in pads, we're not in full 11-on-11 drills, but what you are getting is the opportunity to come out here, coach up a couple specifics in relationship to the assignments. So here we are, 3 practices in from the spring, and it's been a tremendous improvement in relationship to knowing what we're supposed to do. Now, the detail that we need to get coached up on the film, that's there. We got a lot of work to do, probably just like everybody else in college football, especially how that relates to 2026 and new people. We have work to do, but in the end, the assignments piece is way less of a stress and a strain.
Coach, over the course of the off season, did any of your coaching philosophy change going into 2026?
Not necessarily. I think going into year 2, situational football will be more critical because we're spending less time coaching the assignments, and now we can get into the next level of football. And someone threw this out on the way in, football 1-on-1 last year, and it wasn't good enough. And here we are, we're in 202. We need to get that thing up to 303, eventually get to a graduate level if you want to be very competitive in this league. So the situational football and the details is really what we're looking to improve.
Coach Charles mentioned that building on the fundamentals, limiting the catastrophic mistakes. What does that look like? How do you establish that in spring?
Well, okay, so catastrophic mistakes generally happen in situational football when the quarterback's pressing, is feeling like he has to make a play. Maybe we're down a touchdown. When you're more competitive and you know what you're doing to begin with, then you're going to avoid those situations. So avoiding the disaster, let's do all the things that we can handle and we can control, and then you're naturally going to start seeing yourself do a little bit better when it really matters in the critical moments of the game in the fourth quarter, conversion downs, 3rd down in the red zone. So feeling pretty good about where we're at on those things right now just because of the assignments, but there's really no magic words. It's not like one unit meeting is going to make the difference there. It's the constant process every single day. Us as coaches being who we are every single day, and then demanding a lot out of what we should know in relationship to assignments. Now here's the detail, spring practice. Let's go attack it.
You do bring back a couple experienced receivers with Speedy and Wade, and you got a lot of new transfers and some freshmen too. What are you seeing out of that wide receiver group?
Okay, so what we're really seeing right now, not just the wide receivers, but all the skill positions in general, the guys that are returning, whether they had a lot of production or they didn't. Maybe there were some guys that you guys might not know as well because they didn't play. They're setting the standard for these new folks that are coming in, and then the guys that we brought in are pros. That's the way that some of these new people have been attacking it as like pros, more mature guys. Some of them have a lot of experience, some of them maybe not as much, but we brought them in for the reasons that they're here. As big picture is like Coach Frost really wants to bring in guys that are the right kind of people, good dudes, people that get it and they want to be competitive and they want to win. So having those guys just really makes it help.
Who has stood out at that position? Has anyone stood out at receiver in the early going?
Yeah, Waden's doing a great job. Derry, who came from Monmouth, he's doing a really good job because he's smart, so he knows what he's doing, so he's playing fast. Bibbs flashes. Caleb Rollerson is a guy that's been here, maybe didn't play as much last year. He did make some meaningful plays. Those are just some of the guys top of my head in the wide receiver room. Obviously, having Dylan Wade back helps. Having Caden Peening healthy helps. Having Swint healthy helps. So we just go down the list, but just guys with experience, and we recruit them for a reason. We got some guys that are explosive and they want to win. That's the cool thing.
How do you envision using both Landon Chambers and Duke Watson given their different skill sets?
Sure. I really like where the running back room is right now. Now, of course, we're still learning some of these assignments and knowing our scheme and getting to the detail of that. It's going to be hard to say still right now, 3 practices in. Okay, what are the run concepts that each guy runs better? We only have a handful in right now because it's only day 3, so we'll have to just check in on that as we get closer to fall camp, but I definitely see those guys helping this football team.
Coach, what's that competition looking like? To identify who the backup quarterback's going to be, assuming it's going to be Alonzo as a starter. You got Caleb, who I know you're familiar with from your Boise days. You got Keon Jenkins, the freshman. What's that competition looking like?
It's good. It's fun to watch. Some of these guys got, they've had highs and lows in practice already, and that's not any shock to me. That's usually how practice goes. So for those guys, it's really just operating clean, taking care of the football. It's going to be a fun competition. I don't know if we're going to know where that thing's gonna, be the final landing spot for who the QB is through spring practice. But right now, the competition is there and it's good.
Coach, last season the offense accounted for most of the team's penalties. One of the more penalized teams in the Big 12. How do you now that you were able to maybe float around more to different position groups? How do you look at the offensive line and kind of help, limit those types of things going into next season?
So those procedural issues, those catastrophic mistakes, and it seemed like those happen in the worst time. I think it gets back to the earlier question. When we know our assignments, we have firm feet, we're going to execute better. So some of the detail with that, we really broke it down as a staff and looked at how do we need to practice to make sure these things are happening. Year one, when you feel like you're getting it from all ends, okay, we have to get ready for this game plan, we got to get this guy ready who's new. You're just dealing with a lot, and it's easy to lose sight of those things. So right now, here we are going into the weekend after 1 week of spring practice, feeling a lot better about knowing our assignments, knowing what we're supposed to do, and getting into detail. Because of that, having firm feet, we should eliminate a lot of those catastrophic mistakes.
What do you think is the most significant thing you've accomplished in this first week?
Stayed healthy. I think that's a big one. Coming through spring practice, I think Coach Duvall and the strength staff's done a great job getting these guys ready to be able to practice the way we want to practice, which is fast and physical. So that's one. Two, just our procedure and our operation. We do a lot of different things on offense. So we operate a couple different ways, and that has been the biggest improvements from year one to year two. Is just how we operate, getting a formation out on the field, and not just simply having that formation on the field, but everyone knowing their assignment, having firm feet, and being able to execute and play through the echo of the whistle.
Any change to strength and conditioning year over year? Different approach? Any difference in approach?
You would have to ask those guys. I think that they've just had some more experienced guys, and it's year two in the program, so I think that there's just naturally going to be some more familiarity with what we're trying to get done in the weight room and those kind of things. But
You mentioned how good it
definitely-
was to have Dylan Wade back from a receiving standpoint. What does he have to do to become a more complete, all-around tight end?
Sure. No, I think just having Coach Bassett here is going to help him tremendously. Someone that's lived in that world as an offensive line coach, and body positioning and hand placement, and knowing his assignment.
All right, thanks everyone.
Okay, thanks guys.
President Cushman here next.